Good evening. Welcome, welcome. My name's Herb Sosa, and welcome to Celebrate Orgullo's 10th annual Indigenous and Hispanic Pride Festival. Tonight, we have a really, really special night for you. Una noche especial, espectacular para todos ustedes hoy. We're doing our spoken word, jazz, and eats evening. So, not necessarily in that order, but I don't know about you, but I have my wine ready. So that's the drinking and eating part. For those of you that pre-ordered dinner at home, join us in. And if you didn't, go get yourself some snacks and sit back and really enjoy a night of art and culture. We have a wonderful, wonderful assortment of talents here today, many of which I'm very proud to call friends. And if they're not, they will be by the end of the night, I promise you, for all of you as well. We're going to have really world-class art and talent here tonight. We have the amazing Von Henry and her jazz sounds and smooth, easy, sexy sounds. So we're going to have some of her wonderful music. Then we have author, artist, and contributor of Queer Brown Voices and many, many, many other things. And you'll find him to be fascinating as I do. Jesus Jairez, direct from Mexico. So we're going to have el increíble Jesus Jairez, directo de México, que nos va a compartir no solamente su talento y su arte, pero su hogar y su vida. We also have a very dear friend, the incredibly insightful and spiritual Mil Ocampo, who's going to recite some of their recent work, both through music and through spoken word. And I'm really excited to hear what Mil has to share with us today. And a recent, hopefully future good friend, recognized by the National Poetry Series for his work on his latest book, Thrown in the Throat, Arthur Benjamin Garcia is going to be joining us as well. And hopefully you'll love him as much as we all do as well in his work. And then later on in the broadcast, we have somebody extremely special as well. We have the 2013 presidential inaugural poet for President Obama, and a very dear friend of mine for more years than either one of us care to remember, Richard Blanco. He will be joining us later in the evening as well. So I encourage you, as I said, to sit back, enjoy, have a great time. We're going to start off right now with some smooth jazz by Von Henry. So when we come back, I'll introduce you to our artists. Have a good time.
I keep searching everywhere to assuage these feelings of despair. In my darkest hours, I have no peace, 'cause I've already paid my wages in tears. As I toil through the night, I search for that glimmer of light. All the things that I say and feel never coincide. I found my place and I'm not scared. Life is good and the weather is fair. Now I have seen the light. People know I'm queer, 'cause I've already paid my wages in tears. As you travel down the road, you try to lighten up your load. It's not up to you to judge which way I go. And troubles come from everywhere, and heaven knows I've had my share. I know I'm not alone, 'cause there are millions of us out there, and we've already paid our wages in tears. As we struggle through this life, why on earth the same, but we're all playing in the same game. We had to share where we live, so we all need to give, 'cause we've already paid our wages in tears. Yes, I've already paid my wages in tears. Yes, we've already paid our wages in tears.
And that was the amazing Von Henry with Funk Pedal, her band. I love her, and we're so lucky to have her be a local artist here in South Florida. But she travels a lot, and I'm sure she'll come to a wonderful city close to you soon. Now I'm thrilled to bring in our three of our amazing talents. First, let me bring in Mr. Benjamin here. Show you on screen. Hey, Benjamin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Where are you coming to us from tonight?
I'm coming in from upstate New York in the Finger Lakes. So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
I love that. I love that area. I actually spent a summer, and you'll know I'm not lying when I tell you this, in Chautauqua Lake, because my grandparents used to live up there, and I went to the the Chautauqua Institute as a little kid. Okay. And I saw Margaret Mead there when she was obviously still alive many years ago. And it was amazing. It was an absolutely amazing experience up there. So I know the area well. So I'm thrilled to have you here. Next, we're going to bring on Mill. Mill is a wonderful, as I said, incredibly talented individual.
Let me get this thing situated.
You're good. You're good.
A little more to the right. It's like more to the right. Okay, there we go. Okay.
So Mel, what will we be expecting from you tonight?
Well, I've had a rough week, so I was it was up in the air for what I was gonna choose. I like to do all my music and every piece that I have. It takes me a while to kind of prepare, but it's just whatever I feel that this is gonna be good to put out there at the moment. So it's basically whatever I'm experiencing, I just kind of throw it out. So yeah.
Fantastic. And Mill, I won't even begin to describe or do a resume on any of you, but what I know of Mill is a brilliant individual, and I don't toss those accolades around a lot. I've been in awe of this person for many years, and Mill also has served in the Marines for defending our great country. Mill is also an incredible theologian. If you want to argue religion, she's either the best or the worst person to do that with, and you'll see why. But I also want to bring on an equally amazing person. I feel like it's Christmas for me today because I'm really surrounded by all of you that are incredible talents, and hopefully everybody out there at home also will appreciate as much as I do. Here we have the amazing Jesus Chaides. Mr. Chaides, ¿cómo estás? Welcome.
Thank you.
And where are you coming from us? Where are you coming from? That looks like you're in an art gallery. Where are you?
I'm in my living room. I'm in Mexico City. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, they're confusing me a little bit. Weren't you at Dallas bound for many years?
Oh, I was in Dallas all my life, and I never wanted to come to Mexico. But then I came to Mexico, and then you couldn't get me out of Mexico City. I love it here. Yeah.
One of the privileges that I give myself as the director of Celebrate Orgullo, which is our 10th annual festival, and Unity Coalition, the organization that puts on this festival, is just finding. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I won't lie. It's not like I have some big system, but I'm very lucky to run across unbelievable talents and things that I just find interesting, and hopefully other people will too. And I came across this incredible book a while back called Queer Brown Voices, and I'll spare you the whole long journey, but that's how I came across Jesus, and he'll tell you a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. But let's start off with Jesus. and we're going to talk to you a little bit more about who you are, what took you to Mexico City, and all kinds of other great things.
Okay.
Okay. So tell us. Let's start there. Let's start with Mexico City. Why the move?
Why the move? It's it's one of the largest cities in the world, and it's close to my grandparents are from Mexico. They crossed the border in 1915, 1916. They moved to Lockhart, Texas, which is right side of between San Antonio and Austin, and
Right.
and my parents were born there in Lockhart, and they were first generation, and they moved to Dallas, and I was born there, and I was the second generation, and Dallas was very good for me. I started a gay Latino activist group, the Gay Hispanic Coalition, the Dallas, back in 1982, and that lasted for about 8 years. And then I started an art gallery. I had an art gallery in Dallas, and I got well known for that. I was showing my photography and my clothing that I also designed. And I got well known, and I started a gay Latino radio show called Sin Fronteras, and that's how I became part of the book Queer Brown Voices. But I didn't come to Mexico City until Christmas of 1986. I didn't speak Spanish at all, and Mexicans would laugh at me because mexicano no puede hablar en español. And so, but it was really a big turning point. Prior to coming to Mexico City, I was Jesse Cherez, and when I returned back from my visit in Christmas 1986, I was Jesus Chaires, and got out of politics and got into art, which is what I wanted to do. And once I left the radio show in July of 2005, I recreated myself as a writer. So I've been writing arts, life, and culture about GLBT life here in Mexico City for a North Texas gay newspaper called the Dallas Voice. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's fascinating. I can certainly relate to the name because Herb Sosa is my dad and my grandfather. I'm Heriberto Jorge Sosa, but when you try to explain Heriberto or spell it out to somebody, it's usually like it doesn't end well. So I just go with Herb Sosa. But let me ask you, because I'm curious. Through my years, I have realized that many of us kind of encounter our culture, if you will, in different ways and at different times. Some never do. Some people embrace it early on. Some people just kind of grew up with it. In my particular case, I was born here in the United States. My parents are Cuban, first generation, speak perfect English, the whole bit. But their logic was always from the front door in, Spanish only at home. And seems kind of extreme, but when you're a little kid, it doesn't matter. It's just that's how you're raised. When I started school 5 or 4, I didn't speak a word of English, which was kind of the flip because I was born here. And I really appreciate that they did that. And I'll tell you why, because at least for me, it's given me both cultures. It's given me both languages. I could, for the most part, read, write, and communicate in both languages pretty much equally. But when it comes to the culture, when it comes to the heritage, for me, it was a very interesting dynamic because I'm from here. I'm American, and I'm very proud of my heritage. I'm very proud of mi herencia, mi cultura, pero no soy de Cuba, soy de aquí, de los Estados Unidos. And the more I got older, the more I realized that there were a lot of us in this situation, and fill in the blank. I mean, to say Cuban, it could be Mexican, it could be Nicaraguan, it could be a lot of different cultures. But I'm curious, when did you, if you did at all, but when did you re-embrace your Mexicanismo, your culture? I know you mentioned you had an art gallery. I'm curious how that played into it.
Mm-hmm. Well, interesting because I grew up in an all gringo neighborhood, so I was very assimilated. We did speak Spanish. My parents didn't want us to speak Spanish because when they grew up, there was a lot of discrimination in their small town, Lockhart, Texas, where it was very segregated. I mean, three cemeteries for one for white, one for black, one for Mexicans, Mexican Americans, and so. I never spoke Spanish. I never embraced being Latino. And in fact, when I went to school, they changed my name from Jesus. They changed it to Jesse. So I guess, the Baptists didn't want, a little guy running around by the name of Jesus. So, they changed my name to Jesse, which is very well accepted by my family, my parents. And so I grew up that way and got involved in politics locally because I was denied entrance in a gay bar because of being Latino. I heard the cashier, as I left the bar, he said, "That's another Mexican down," so. And that's when I realized, I've been very naive in thinking I wasn't discriminated against. So I got involved and started a gay Latino organization in North Texas. And I was still Jesse. Everybody that was part of that group in 1982 until was all Mexican American. It was English dominant, and so. And I met a friend who invited me to Mexico City. He invited me several times, and I never wanted to go. And he says, "Girl, I know you now. I know once you go, you're going to love it." So I said, okay. So I went to Mexico City in Christmas 1986. So when I came to Mexico City in Christmas 1986, and came to one of the largest cities in the world where, it's number one in music and art and culture. And I was like, my God, I was being lied to this whole time about my culture and my heritage. Right. And I really embraced it. And like I said earlier, I was involved in politics. And then, when I went back in January 1987, back to Dallas, I said, I want to be the artist that, I wasn't ever encouraged to be when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I had older brothers and sisters who were always discouraging, telling me, very negative things. So anyway, I returned in January 1987 to Dallas, and I was Jesus Chaires. I was no longer Jesse Chaires. Jesse Chaires died, and ever since then, it's been wonderful. Mexico City has been very good for me. I would come here at least 10 times a year, wow. And I would take photographs because I started doing taking photographs, and I was known for my Mexico City street scenes, and I was really attracted to the Virgen de Guadalupe. In fact, I've designed some jackets. Here's one of the.
Wow!
It even has lights on it. So.
I love it.
And then I started a Virgen de Guadalupe art show in Dallas, Texas, in December 1988, and it still exists there today. Since 1988, it's been a wonderful ride, and I embrace my cultural and heritage. Once I got here, I support local artists, and so I'm really attracted to local art. The painting behind me, this one was done by a local artist. That's a portrait of me. So, and then, I collect folk art. I'm very attracted to folk art. This is a little book done by a local artist here, but I call it my Bible because it opens up to, an altar that's, it's got the Virgen de Guadalupe in it, so I really, so I embrace everything. In fact, when Mexicans come to my home, they go, "Oh my God, you're more Mexican than the Mexicans are." And then they said, we never thought about decorating our home like you do with folk art and local artists, because, European art is still a big influence, not only in the United States, but also here in Mexico. Yeah.
Sure. It's interesting you say that because I in my own adventures, if you will, I've always been fascinated with religious iconography and statues, and people that come to my house either think I'm very, very religious because of just statues, or I'm a Sanchero because of the Cuban part, and I just find it amusing. I really explain it in a real simple way. I'm fascinated with the idea of taking a piece of wood or plaster or metal and creating something beautiful to worship or idolize something that you can't see or touch. I just am fascinated with that concept, that idea of it all. To be very clear, I know that piece of wood has no power. It doesn't get me any closer to my God. I just think they're beautiful pieces. Like this is one of my favorites. You should know that. This is a great little Mexican piece that I picked up a while ago. Again, just little things like that. I'm curious about the other two of us here. Benjamin, I'll start with you. How, if at all, has your culture influenced your work and you as a person, not necessarily just your writing, but you as a person? Hang on, you're muted. You're muted. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
So how has my altar influenced
No, your culture, your heritage. Your culture, maybe your own.
It's like, oh, that. Sure. I mean, I think that a lot of what Jesus said, I sort of identify with in terms of even just wrestling with identity and language and sort of reclaiming that. And, starting off as my entire life, I was Benjamin Garcia until I went to school. And then like even just literally seeing that name, because that wasn't what I was called at home. I was called, Antonio. And so to see Benjamin written out like on this little apple that I was supposed to, use to show my teacher my name, I was like, who is that? That's not me. I'm not Benjamin. Like even the name sounded so weird. The length of the name sounds, it was, yeah. So it took a lot of adjusting to that and then sort of coming back to it once I was older, and most of my education was done in English. And then I had to go back and, hey, there's a lot that I can connect with if I connect with Spanish again, if I connect with, my family and all of that, what that brings. So that's definitely come into the work now.
Do you think in Spanish or in English?
It really depends. So it switches back and forth so quickly. The other day, someone at the I was checking out of the grocery store, and I was thinking of my mom, and it was my turn to check out, and I started talking to the cashier in Spanish because I was thinking of my mom, and I didn't even realize, and she was just like what? I have no idea what's happening right now. Because yeah, she obviously didn't speak Spanish.
I have a very dear friend who will go nameless because I'm sure he's watching, who's Honduran, and his Spanish is limited. But the minute he has a couple of drinks, we all just sit back and laugh because it's like it flows out of him, and it's like, are you possessed? Like, how did you? Where are these words coming from? And they sound right; they're not just gibberish. So it's very, very interesting. Mill, I'm not going to cheat because I know you rather well. But I'm also I am going to put you on the spot a little bit. I do know
Go for it.
How much your heritage, your upbringing, everything that makes you who you are today, good and bad and indifferent, how much that plays into who you are and how you express yourself as a person and as an artist. But I want to hear in your words, how has that, how has the world brought you to who you are today?
Oh my God, where do I start? I have to summarize everything, but it's a conglomeracy of intersectionalities that truly create who I am as an individual. Starting from coming here as an immigrant, as a child. So I'm one of the, what they call them, not a balsero as they give the Cuban people, but I did cross the river. So the slang term for it has always been a wetback. So I did cross the Mexican River to get here. Contrary to popular belief, where majority of the people, not majority, the minority of the people do believe that people like me will amount to nothing. I have used that. So every weakness that would be seen as a weakness, I've used to kind of rise above every single time. And my Spanish heritage, my Native American heritage, all of that it's it's a beautiful thing to be so mixed with so many different cultures. And only recently am I identifying even more cultures that I've had, by asking, that tatarabuela and so and so, and then you find out, you're like, wow, you're Portuguese too, and you're also, Greek, and you're also Italian, and you also got Basque, family, and it's that whole beauty of humanity that creates every single individual. There's no such thing as a pure race, right? That whole pure racial concept can like get thrown out the window. And I find that, for me at least, it reflects it in my work, the things that I've gone through as a child, being an immigrant, and also in the area of religion. So I was raised as a Catholic. Eventually, I gave my mother a heart attack, and I was like, "Mom, I have something to tell you," And anywho's, it kind of, I developed my own style and way of thinking, and majority of it had to do with, again, obviously the externalities around me, and then eventually um, growing into this new form of spirituality, where, for me at least, and what I've encountered, the Christ, Jesus, has become such a beautiful aspect of my life. Whereas other people would have been like, you don't belong in our church, you don't belong in our system. I'm like, yeah, okay, no, you guys don't belong, y'all don't even know the half of it, right? And so I showcase all of that in my music and also in my work. So yeah.
Fantastic. Jesus, Jesus, talk to us a little bit about Queer Brown Voices and how that project came about. As I said, I before I knew you, and you know this, I fell in love with the book, and I was like, okay, I got to find out who these people are. I need them. I don't. This was before we even had a theme, I'll tell you, for Celebrate Orgullo, and you know that because we've been talking about it for a while. So it just made sense to bring you in at this time. But I'd like to hear from you again. How did that project come about, and what is it about?
Three editors that they got together. They wanted to write about GLBTQ Latino history because our history is pretty much left out. For example, Stonewall. We all celebrate Stonewall, but what's missing is the people that were there, which were basically people of color and drag queens. There were Latinos and blacks and drag queens that were there, and so you had these three editors that wanted to get a book together of 15 activists from around the country, around the U.S. and Puerto Rico, to write their history, and so they wanted people that were part of the fight in our community from the 80s and the 90s. And being that I had the USA's first GLBT Latino radio show in the country, I was asked to participate. And I was able to tell the history of my life, starting a GLBT Latino group in North Texas, and then starting the radio show. The radio show was not on mainstream radio. Of course, they wouldn't have a queer radio Latino radio show. I had the general manager who was at my house in the spring of 1993. And we were drinking some, Coronas and, talking. And then I thought, oh my God, this is the time for me to audition. So I had already started coming to Mexico City and was buying music that I bought here in Mexico City and was playing that music. And he liked the music so much, he asked me, would you like to have a radio show, a gay Latino radio show on KNON 89.3 FM? And I said, yeah. And so I was able to, write about my experiences with that. We had other people in Texas, in San Antonio, who participated because in the early 80s, we had a coalition of GLBTQ Latino organizations. The first it was Houston, and then we started, and then I started Dallas, and then we ended up with a group in El Paso. We ended up in San Antonio, and we started in Austin, and so we formed a coalition GLBT Tejanos, and we would often meet in Austin for HIV prevention information and stuff. And so all of that is part of the book. Information that usually left out. The book is mostly academia because it's for people that are in college, and so they can learn about our history. It was published by UT University of Texas Press. So yeah, and I was very glad to be a part of that book.
That's wonderful. And if you don't have it, if you haven't gotten the book, where can they find Queer Brown Voices? Where can somebody purchase it?
The best way really is to Google search Queer Brown Voices, and you can get it on Amazon. You can get it. It's also it's also an audio book.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and so but it's basically published from UT Press in Austin, Texas. Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear the backstory, if you will, on how the book came about and what the intention, if you will, was of the book. And I have to say, it's a perfect segue. I mean, Unity Coalition, Coalición Unida, the organization that I helped found and runs Celebrate Orgullo, among many other programs that we have, really was born out of, in great part, trying to lead and educate and empower, if you will, a whole generation that was wiped out and fill in the blanks, if you will. I'm certainly of a generation that I'm very lucky to be here, but I'm also shell-shocked, if you will, because, and I say this to younger people, and I would imagine you could relate, 8 out of 10 of my friends are gone. They're just gone, and AIDS had everything to do with that. And why is that significant? I had a very interesting conversation with somebody just 2 days ago about the current pandemic that we're living in. And I said, sadly, there are some parallels, and I hope we don't look back at this year and that parallel is even as great as the AIDS epidemic was for the gay community specifically. But a whole generation of art and culture and heritage and beautiful, amazing, crazy, batshit crazy people and talented people are just gone. And it's up to us as our community to tell that story, because as I have sadly learned the older I get, who writes the history books? Whoever wins. And sadly, the LGBT community doesn't always win in the sense of we're not the majority. So we got to scream and we got to create our own culture. And certainly the three of you are doing that in your own right. And I applaud that. I absolutely applaud that. Jesus, can I con you into maybe reading a little bit out of the book, or at least try to...
Well, it's just I'm elder, and that's one of the things, because I survived another pandemic of the 80s and stuff. So my eyes, even though I'm wearing glasses, it's just they need to be updated. I can't read, but
tell us about your piece then. Just, you don't have to read it. Tell us about the piece that you contributed and what was it about.
Yeah, well, I contributed about my radio show, but one of the things is, like when I mentioned, the general manager was at my house, and we were drinking Mexican beer, and I started playing music that I got in Mexico City. I was playing rock en español, because in North Texas, the only Spanish music that was on the air was norteña, ranchera, and banda music, and so in Tejano. And so when I was playing rock en español and in Mexican dance music, the general manager really liked it, and he asked me, if I wanted to start a radio show, and so I did. The radio show started out as a talk show, and but this was in July of 1993. But after a month of having gay Latinos, I ran out, because everybody was still closeted at the time. And so I ended up changing format and not doing any more interviews and just started playing music. But every time we broke to a commercial time on the 20s, I would put GLBT Latino information that I would get. because I was coming to Mexico City a lot. So I would do interviews of Mexican activists and actually transmit from Mexico City to the studio using a cell phone. And so I would do all that. And one of the things about playing the radio show is that a lot of people, I mean, having music on the show, a lot of the word spread around the youth and mostly recent immigrants, and that they said, oh my God, there's a cool radio show that plays, that plays wonderful music, and the guy's gay, And that was one of the things, and anybody and everybody that helped me on the radio show had to be open gay. You couldn't, I wouldn't allow anybody on the radio show that was.
Wait a second, gay?
Yeah, it was gay. And then because people liked the music, I ended up doing parties. We're doing El Taller de Rock, we were doing the Medianoche in Babylonia, and the place was packed. It was packed. What I really liked about the people that came is that there were people that only spoke English, there were people that only spoke Spanish, there were gay people, there were straight people. It was an all-inclusive crowd, and it was really, really wonderful. And I decided to retire after 12 years doing the radio. I decided to retire in July of 2005 for 12 years and reinvent myself as a writer. So that's what that chapter is about. But also it talks a little bit about my growing up, being the only gay in the family. I had 5 brothers and 2 sisters, and I was given a hard time because of it. And that didn't stop me. I'm the most successful one in the whole family. So
good for you. Good for you.
And living like I have a pension. I can live well. I live in a beautiful a huge apartment in the center of Mexico City, and I'm living very well. I can afford it. And people ask me, well, why did you move to Mexico City? And I always answer, so I can live like a rich white woman. So.
Before the show is over, Benjamin and Mill and I already discussed it. We need your schedule for when we can all plan our vacations to come over.
Yeah. I have to come on down.
Exactly. Well, hang on. I don't want you to leave yet. I got more questions for you. But Mill, can I ask you to maybe do a little performance for us?
Yes, of course. I actually have one of the songs prepped and ready to roll. So you'll have to excuse me because I could not get my other vocals off of this, so you will have the other background vocals to it. Other than that, this song is called News, and it's actually a philosophical term. So a lot of people don't know I am a philosophy major, which got me nowhere in life. So and I'm also an anthropology major. So go UM. So guys, this song is called News, and it's basically about my experience when I encountered God. So a lot of people, they go to church. Some people have to go to church to encounter God, which is fine. Some people, encounter God out on the streets. For me, it always happens in my dreams. That's like my go-to place. It's like my prayer time, so to speak. So I do love to sleep. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this piece. Dream after dream, he's always teaching me, showing me fragments of divine history. He sealed my heart, sealed my mind, and opened my eyes so I could say, the more I listen, the less I am me. It's no longer I now, it's the Son of Man in me. Watch how every move I've made, he set me free. Your guidance is love, the 99 to 1. I chose to walk the path brighter than trillion suns. Now I cross the night. I'm a fearless comet in the sky. Now I cut the vanta. It's all around me, but I became the light. Deep in Plato's cave, dim reflection. It's made by man. It's made by man. Deep in Plato's cave, there's a dim reflection made by man. Made by the slavers of men. Shadows they dance, thought after thought, something is wrong. We're embracing the fire that's hurting us all. Vagrant expressions as the silhouettes perform the rituals in their caves. Screams in the dark, holding a hand, children they run. I need to be a prism dispersing symmetry. On the verge of rescuing, they're facing the walls, unable to move. The comet it comes, scatter the dark and dusk, the wardens at dawn. The more I witness, the less I am me. And so the more I witness, the less I am me. All right, and that was Nuos.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that was incredible. That was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's basically it's just our children aspects of us of who we were as children got stripped away by structures, got stripped away. Like I mean, who we truly are, the purity, this beautiful children that we truly are inside, stripped away by all these things around us. And so the concept of Nuos is the concept of just being in this dark cave, not knowing which way out, not knowing where to go, and you just you're a child, but you want to get out. You just don't know how to get out. So
Right.
that's where the lyrics of this, song come from. So yeah,
That was amazing. That was amazing. And I definitely want you to do some reading in a bit, but I want to find out what is thrown in the throat. What does that mean? Where did that come from? Talk to me, Benjamin.
Sure. So I'm my first book is out. It's Thrown in the Throat. It's through Milkweed Editions, and I wasn't sure about that name, but it came together. It pulls a lot of the stuff that's in this book. It has to do with language, but it also has to do with the body and sex and food and eating and all of the things that we use our throats for. So this book deals a lot with language. I do, as for my day job, I'm a health educator. I do a lot of HIV testing and connecting people with PrEP and syringe exchange program services. And a lot of what I do in my job actually involves a lot of work around language and destigmatizing language. And it started finding itself into some of these poems. Obviously, my own experience with language in having English be my second language, but now my primary language has also come into playing with this. I used to be like really defensive and romantic about Spanish because that's the language of my family. But then I also started thinking about it as like a person of native descent. What does it mean to have another colonizing language as my native language? And these poems deal with that. So the language in question. The language in question is criminal. Like a shark, it ate a license plate, and it ate the shark. Well, the fins it poached anyway. It gorges like a gorge, the river flowing like a scarf some magician just keeps pulling. It ate away the deposits of clay. Like a sinkhole, the language in question ate a chateau and the family inside. It pickpockets the stranger with gusto. It barters with bards, pays in counterfeit. Money is no object. The tongue desires, the language acquires. The language in question likes conquest, moves west because it hungers like locusts. Like the larvae of the caddisfly, this tongue makes a shell of what it pilfered. It's the apex predator in the food pyramid. It ransacked the pyramids, tours the spoils of theft to the country of origin, but only on loan. A paper wasp that makes its home from what it chewed and spat back out of your own, and it stings you if you get too close. Too close, stung. I told you, the language in question is the S-shaped tongue of the anteater, the so-called worm tongue. It warms itself at the fire it made from other people's scrolls, codices, tomes. It entombs and embalms and lights bombs. The language in question thinks it's Billy the Kid. The language in question is shooting up the saloon. The language in question is shooting up meth, dope, coke. Whatever's on hand is the drug of choice. The language of question is corrupt. It's poison and salve, savage and sage. It's honeysuckle and bitter oleander. Only a lawyer could make sense of it and sell it to the highest bidder. Like a snake that ate a parrot whole, spits out the bright feathers without a bird to hold them together. That's what it's like when the accent doesn't even come close. The language gets twisted, the tongue gets tired. I'd bet it's kinky and likes to be tied, likes every bit of itself bit. This tongue bids adieu. Hold in the mouth. Adios, amigos. So these poems tend to be a little bit of a mouthful, and that's sort of intentional and kind of reflects the experience of being run over by language as someone who is speaking in a language that's not their primary language. Another poem is Ode to the Corpse Flower. So the corpse flower is this gigantic prehistoric plant that has an enormous flower like the size of a person, and it stinks like a rotting corpse. I guess you should also know there used to be a language of flowers. So if, like in Victorian times, you liked somebody, you sent them a certain color of flower. If you sent them the wrong flower, you could send the wrong message. So it mattered, and you had to know, like, speak this language of flowers. So, Ode to the Corpse Flower. In the language of flowers, I am the one who says, fuck you. I won't be anyone's nosegay. This Mary is her own talking bouquet. Never let a man speak for you or call you what he wants. I learned that the hard way. Amorphophallus titanum. It sure sounds pretty in a dead tongue, except it's Latin for big ugly dick. I mean, I am, but what an asshole scientist. I prefer to think of myself, and this may sound vain, as a goddess, cadaver dressed in drag. My stage name, Versace Medusa, part Lilith, part Calla Lily. Keep your heteronormative birds and bees. Give me the necrophiliacs, the freaks, the meat-eating beetle and flesh fly. There I go again, allies, getting all hot and bothered, being vulgar. Vulgar meaning common, as when something is below you. Like a girl forbidden to say fuck. It makes a woman sound so common. Oh, come on. That's all you expect from a flower. To be likable. But to keep it raw and 100 is to be abhorred. Fine, but even the haters will pay to hold their nose at a halftime show. They'll claim they are beyond Beyonce, sick of Selena, yet they can't look away from the live cam. No one wants to miss the showgirl as she breaks through the cake, unhooks her lingerie, La Virgen de Guadalupe with a twist of Santa Muerte. What in the hell is she wearing? Glad you asked. Death is the new Christian Dior, the latest Chanel, his corpse smell. I am the weak old ham hock whore of horticulture. I bring the hothouse haute couture, and I always come in last place dressed to the nines, I get what I want, which is to be the 10th muse. Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, little Evita de Buenos Aires, screwing and screwing over los descamisados on my rainbow tour. Fuck Whitman, fuck Pound, give me Emily D. Speaking of which, have I ever told you, Daddy, only sun gods get me hard. You want it? I got it. Let me show you how a chola really leans. Mother Nature may wear floral, but I ain't your mama. I thirst like Betty Boop at Peak Coquette, Marilyn Monroe blowing in an air vent. Say Malinche, say Truvada whore, give me more. I thrive in shade. My throat is my throne, so queen me, bitch. So, and
That was amazing.
I talked a little bit. I think I'll take up some time if there's.
Mr. Richard Blanco is joining us. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm trying to fix the camera here.
Luckily, you're an incredible author as well. So otherwise, that would have needed a whole explanation coming into that. But we're glad you joined us, Benjamin. That was amazing. When did you start writing and why? Because you don't just. I imagine that didn't just come out of you just like that one day and boom, pen to paper.
Yeah, I mean, I started, tinkering with language and words when I was maybe in middle school, but I never really took it too seriously. And then once I was in undergrad, I was like, do I choose something where I can make a living, or should I go into, writing? And I tried to do a biology degree first to go into like a medical track, but I just kept getting drawn back to the writing part. So I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm just going to go for it. And that was like, I graduated from my undergrad in 2009. I thought I would have a book out by the time I was done with grad school, which was 2011 and 2020. And I did not expect my book to come out during a pandemic. So, life happens.
What do you think is the most misunderstood part about your book, if there is any?
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of resistance to some of the poems that I had that have language like, so that's considered not appropriate for a lot of situations. And so I had to become comfortable with it myself and to sort of know why I was using it, for it to be able to work in the poems. And there might still be some people that are not okay, don't think that these words belong, or some ideas belong in poems. And, I just had to go forward. These poems are not necessarily for you, but they are for someone out there.
Well, and respectfully, I at least did not feel it was gratuitous in any way whatsoever. I mean, the words are there because that's what you're expressing. You're not just throwing in language just to be shocking, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, in grad school, I was told like you can't use these F-bombs. Like it just takes you out of the poem. X, Y, and Z. Just all the sound bites that you pick up along the way. And it threw me off for a while, but I came back to it. And there was a reason I was gravitating toward it. So it comes out of this book.
That's amazing, and that's a perfect segue. Somebody that throws a lot of F-bombs into his work constantly. Especially at the 2013 inaugural, that was Richard Blanco. They beeped him all throughout his poem. Welcome, Richard. We're glad you're here with us, and I know that you're doing back-to-back stuff tonight, so I really appreciate you joining us. How are you?
Great to be here. It's been a while.
I know. For everybody's sake, before you came on, I said, he's a dear friend, and we go back a long time, but I refuse to tell you how long. So. I'm honored that you're joining us tonight.
Just a few years.
Just a few years. So why writing? Why express yourself that way? Why not painting or music or something else? What drove you to the written word?
It's interesting. I think I answered that question finally just a few months ago, believe it or not. Just because I never understood why I was a poet. I had no reason to be a poet, right? Growing up in a lower middle class, working class family, no access to the arts. I'm an engineer. That was my first degree and my career most of my life. But I think what happened, I was started reflecting on. I guess since a little kid, I never remember not knowing two languages. I got here when I was 45 days old. And so I remember translating for my parents when I was like 2 or 3 years old. Not whole conversations, but words and phrases. And I think that just imprinted with me a fascination with language and understanding that language was not just something that you used to communicate, but rather that language was power. Language was emotion. Language was an essential part of one's being. And I think when I decided to do something creative at 28, because I started writing later in life, I think I naturally went over there, went towards language. Plus, I was a horrible painter. I tried that for a while. I can't even paint my own hand, like trace my own hand. It's terrible.
Who is important for you to impress in your life, and when did you impress them?
I'm still waiting. I guess my mother.
Okay.
She keeps me in check still. She's still like, y te pagan por eso. Like, so, no, I think I think that's changed throughout life. I think first, I think my mentor, my writing mentor, Campbell McGrath at FIU, was someone that I still feel like I got to impress in some way. And he was my only teacher for the whole 2.5 years. And I'm not sort of joking about my mother either. Like, but more than impress her, I think a lot of my work, in some ways, she's in a lot of my poems. And I think, in some ways my writing is in part an intent to not heal her, because I don't have the capacity to heal her. But
that's interesting.
To at least, I don't know, honor her in some ways. Honor that. I mean, she left Cuba, her entire, kind of not a typical story, but not atypical, left her entire family, her 8 brothers and sisters in Cuba and whatnot. So I've always felt that since I was a kid. I always felt that kind of sorrow and longing.
Interesting. What about you, Jesus? Who and what was the moment when you said, okay, I've lived up to this person's expectations of me or my expectations of myself? And what was that defining moment for you?
Well,
Yeah.
Well, my defining moment was when I came to Mexico City, being a Mexican American, being assimilated, speaking only English, growing up in all gringo neighborhood. I didn't even know I was Latino. I mean,
Right.
But the defining awakening that I had, I had this in Christmas 1986 when I did come to Mexico City, and it awakened me, and it changed my whole life. Dallas was very good to me to build the foundation with art and with my radio shows and having an art gallery, and then when I retired from a day job, I decided to move to Mexico City, and it's not. And I'm not that far from Dallas. I'm 2 hours away by airplane. So, and I do all my banking and do everything on the internet, or I use my phone, so it's, life is easy here. But it was in the Christmas 1986 where I had that awakening.
Interesting. Jesus, what are you in love with?
Oh my. Besides man, or I'm in love.
Start.
Art. I'm in love with the art and culture that is my people. Something that I was never exposed to. And when I created myself as a writer, GLBT media is very white, and they never, write about our community, about our struggles, and our art and culture. So instead of complaining about it or trying to get somebody to do a story about our LGBT Latino community, I decided to rent myself as a writer, and I decided to write those stories. And every time I write an article, I get published. So I'm very fortunate and really exposed. When I was in Dallas, I exposed the community of LGBT Latino things that are going on. But now I'm exposing the North Texas community about what's going on in Mexico City, where we have a gay pride parade every June, where we have 1 million+ people marching down the street of Paseo de la Reforma, going from the Angel of Independence to the Zocalo, more than 1 million people. I mean, we don't have that in Dallas. People don't know, that we have that many people here. And, and I know some people say, well, I've heard Mexico's real macho, it's very scary to be a gay person in that country. But it's not. I mean, you could live in a small town in USA and be scared to, to be out and open. In Mexico City, it's very open. You got young people, young boys and young girls holding hands, kissing, and you have a big trans community here as well. It's very vibrant and very, very free here. And I like writing about all of those things here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, my next question for several of you, I'm going to set it up, if you will, to kind of so you understand where I'm coming. I want to talk about the responsibility, the celebration, and also the scary parts of having a voice, of being public, of having success, however you define success, and all of us in this screen, I know firsthand, have had various levels of success, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more. But I'll tell you one quick little story for me, and Richard might know some of this. Years ago, I used to have a little shop on Miami Beach that was like a Cuban themed, like a little boutique called Babalu. And for the life of me, I mean, I just wanted to do, express my creativity. I used to design department stores and I used to design products. So it was a natural for me. And I also wanted to celebrate my culture. Mind you, I was born in Miami. So my Cuba, I always say, entre comillas, is Miami. This is my Cuba, Versailles and the Cuban coffee windows. And, this was my Cuba. So when it came to building this little shop, that's what I expressed. And I'm getting to a point here. Unfortunately, many years ago, one day I show up at my store and my manager calls me a few minutes before, because it was actually my day off. And he's like, do you have an interview today? Because, I used to play up the media as often as I could for free exposure, of course. But he's like, no, all these trucks are here. CNN is here. Telemundo, all these. I'm like, no, I don't have an interview, but I'll be there in a few minutes. Turns out that the Brothers to the Rescue planes had been shot down over international waters. Some of you might be too young to remember that, but others may not. It was an international incident. The reason why I bring that up, I consider myself educated. I certainly have an opinion. I certainly had an opinion about what happened there. But when I got to my own store that sold cigars, T-shirts, music, artwork, it was a boutique. That was it. It wasn't the UN, it was a boutique. And I had camera crews like you see on 60 Minutes, on Sundays, with microphones in my face and camera crews. And what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? It terrified me. And it terrified me because I realized, okay, I can answer all this, but the reality is, am I the person that should be talking about? I own a shop in Miami Beach, for God's sakes. I am not an international, politician or somebody that should be giving opinion, that should be opining on international affairs. But many people don't have that restraint and do come on TV. As we know, we have 24/7 newscasts, and experts are not always experts. But having given you that lead in, have any of you had an experience, either good or bad, with your, let's call it success, with your exposure? And how has that made you feel? I'll talk like therapy language. Richard Blanco, let's start with you. Wait, you're muted. You're muted. Richard, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah. I think for the most part, I think what you're saying is I think applies to writers as well in some ways. I always say my poems are smarter than me. Your story is the way you spoke to the world, right? And I always try to maintain that. In fact, I don't like to do too many keynote speeches or anything like that. Let me just read the poem, because the poem is much more nuanced and speaks another kind of truth that doesn't always come out the same way out of my mouth when I'm being not Richard Blanco poet, but just Richard Blanco. But there was an incident, and it was sad. It was really hurt me. It was when I wrote and read a poem for the reopening of the U.S. Embassy in Cuba. And, my work has always been somewhat pretty much apolitical, just kind of like, again, for those reasons. I mean, it's not, at least in the context of Cuba, I wanted to tell the emotional histories of my family and not necessarily get into the politics of it. Let the politicians do that. And so I wrote a poem that was really much more metaphorical and about healing and what I've always been trying to do, like I said with my mom, what I've always been trying to do is just people to people kind of thing. And I got it wasn't a lot, but it hurt. I got some crap on Facebook here and there. And it kind of hurt because I thought and I think most of us are in Miami. I'm not bad mouthing Miami at all. I think we are in a much more a much healthier place or whatnot, or a place of more healing right now. But yeah, that was the one incident where I was like, I still remember some of those Facebook messages and whatnot.
Interesting. Anybody else had any experiences they'd like to share along that line? Or if you didn't, that's great.
I think I would have to say being stuck in the middle, and by middle I mean being an individual that chooses to follow a religious path that's mostly dominated by an evangelical community, was a very difficult thing. So I had my old YouTube channel, which I had over like 2,000. At one point I had about 3,000 to 4,000 subscribers. I lost half of that once I told them, I'm like, hey, I'm not living a double life. And it was a defining moment for me where I had to make a decision. Like, do I stay in the closet so I can, continue, being able to help people out in the streets, or being able to share the gospel with people? Or do I just, hey, I went to sleep, had a dream. And in this dream, God's like, look, you have to be your authentic. You have to be who I made you to be, because if not, you're not going to help anybody. And that's the reality of it. So I decided to kind of like destroy the pride that I had left. And I lost 2,000 subscribers. I got hate mail. I got people telling me, how could you do this to me? We followed you for years. I mean, it was rough. It was rough. And then one of the mentors that I had, who I looked up to tremendously, was like, you're destined for hell. That's it. God, you shouldn't even bother praying. And I'm going to stop praying for you because you're already destined for hell. I think that hurt me more than losing the 2,000 subscribers, more than people, than losing my friends on social media, which were in reality were not friends. They were just, unfortunately, so clouded and confused with a specific theology that they couldn't see into their hearts and truly see that I was still me, right? And to me, that was a definite defining moment where I had to take a step back, really analyze my life and analyze what I was preaching, how I was preaching it. And then I decided I need to go to school for this, because I can't just be out here telling people this is how you're supposed to live, when, I really don't really know about this. So that took me on an entirely amazing journey of school at the University of Miami, it's one of my greatest loves, which is why I love to debate now so much. Which I drive my partner crazy, by the way. She's like, why? It's 3:00 in the morning. I'm like, I need to change their mind, right? Or at least throw like a giant monkey wrench into their whole theological ideas. But yeah, for me, it would have to be that. And it would have to be obviously the years prior to that I lived in the closet. I secluded myself. I became a hermit. I was fasting for 40 days, no food, trying to cure the gay away. So there's like a whole dynamic to my life. And again, it's gone into the music, it's gone into my stuff. So now it I like to talk to other people that are like me, that are like, oh, we're struggling with these sexual desires, or we're struggling with the homosexual demons. And I'm like, oh, you idiots. But then God's like, have patience. Like, this is why you're here, right? So I'm like, all right, Lord. But anywho, so that was the roughest part of my journey so far. And I just turned 36 a few days ago. So how many days ago, John? Like 6 days ago? 6 days ago. So I'm finally hitting the upper 30s, people. So feel pretty old now, but you know, it's all good. It is what it is. So anyways, guys, that's all I have. Those were my defining moments so far. But I know that my greatest moment is yet to come. So okay, I'm done talking. I'm gonna go back to my corner now. Can't hear you, Herb. If you're talking, you're muted, sir.
See, trying to do too many things at once. There we go. Richard, I got to come back to you, and now this is where I come off as like borderline stalker. So don't delete me. True story. There's two go-to books, if you will. La Edad de Oro by Jose Marti, and City of 100 Fires. See, I gave you more fires. City of 100 Fires. And I mean that from the heart. That's always been one of my absolute favorite books. Which, for those of you that don't know, was an early work of yours. But I would be remiss, of course, to not talk about what has to have been a pinnacle so far in your career. And I just want you to kind of take us to that moment. Take us to, what it felt like. What it felt like to walk out on the Capitol steps. What it felt like to meet what has to have been iconic individuals. And not just meet them, but be literally the center of the world's attention, for about 4 minutes there. Indulge us.
Well, everybody always loved the stage. No, no, it was, as you can imagine, such a complex set of emotions. So let me walk you through that. First of all, I guess one important thing is that my partner and I decided that it would be my mother who was sitting right next to me on the platform, waiting, where all the ex-presidents are sitting, and Beyonce. So because that moment was so much more about her story, and so that was very, very special. And on the one level, I was just like, this is too big to fail, so the ego goes away. Like the ego is the one that wants to be perfect, or is afraid of failing. But while I was sitting there with my mother, who grew up in a dirt floor home in Cuba, me, a little chubby, gay kid from a working class family in Huachete, and I thought, this is just really beautiful. I mean, just an incredible moment. I felt embraced, but I also felt something larger than myself, if that makes sense. It's we celebrate the 4th of July, but the 4th of July fireworks, barbecue, like this, there's something palpable in the air in that inauguration. And I just felt, something there's a sort of reverence, something larger than yourself that makes you feel like you're part of something. Other than just your own story. And I'm sitting there, realizing that even at the age of 44 that I was then, there was still some part of me that didn't really believe that I was American, or didn't really trust that I was American, or didn't even trust myself to even feel a part of this country. And that I still felt that, being an American was some other little boy in some other little neighborhood with a white picket fence and the whole 9 yards, somebody on TV. And I think that's when I first became sort of an emotional citizen of this country. And I turned to my mother and I said, I guess, Mommy, I guess we're finally Americanos. If this doesn't do it, I don't know what does. So that was just part of the moment. And that gave me a lot of courage, I guess, and strength, and I guess, yeah, just the butterfly, calm the butterflies. And then the one moment, by the time Kelly Clarkson had finished singing, I just wanted to go up there now. I just wanted to be part of this. And the other surprising things, two more little things. When I get up there, I'm just trying to, I'm doing a beeline for the podium because I just want to read my poem. And the president and vice president stand up and shake my hand, and I'm like a little caught off guard. I'm like, holy shit, like this is really and I'm like, again, what is ¿Qué hace este metido aquí? So, some Cuban kid from Miami. And it was such a beautiful moment because it wasn't like, here, read a poem for the king, it was like they were presenting me to the country. They were presenting me, they were honoring me. And that really sort of propped me up a lot too. And they had my back literally and figuratively, one on each side. Yeah, my cojones grew real big by then. I didn't feel alone. And then there was a little moment which Gloria Estefan and I got to meet just before the inauguration, and for the first time ever.
Mill's head is exploding right now. Look at her.
What, because of Gloria?
She's like my idol. She's one of my faves.
Oh, she's amazing, and I've gotten to know her a little bit better. I think I was the last Cuban in Miami that never met Gloria Estefan, but she said something so beautiful. She's such a beautiful person. You're gonna fall in love with her even more. She just said, "Don't run away from it." She said, "Look at that crowd and embrace it." Wow. And it brings tears to my eyes, just because coming from her, me and she said, because that's only going to happen once in a lifetime, and you got to take it with you. You got to take it all with you. And if you look at the video, I do look out, and I just pause for about 2 seconds and remember. I got to remember to tell her that. I don't think I've never told her that I did that. And that was just a watershed moment. And so, yeah, I mean, there's been so many parts to it too. It was funny. There's a wild ride. There's a lot of heartache. There were 2 complications. Secret Service. Like, I remember one time we were like, when they pick us up at the hotel, and you're going down, like all of DC shut down, and you're in the Secret Service cars with all the lights going down. I'm like, shit, wow. This is fucking cool. With my mother next to me. I was gonna have my mamacita. Yeah, and not to put a plug out there, but it was so surreal, and so that I came home and wrote a little memoir about it. It's called For All of Us One Today, because it was one of those things happened in 8 weeks that you weren't sure that what just happened. And I've never written from that impulse of wanting to record something, because I want to make sure that this really happened, and I want to make sure I never forget it, and it's fresh in my mind. But yeah, it's such a beautiful experience all around.
Well, I want to tell you 2 things, and to say they're heartfelt is an understatement. When I watched you on TV deliver, just to say you look calm was an understatement. I mean, yeah, I kept waiting for your voice to crack. It didn't. You were amazing. And for me, it was just this very interesting dynamic, because I know you as a person, but it sounds so corny, but I cannot express to you the level of pride that I felt. It's like, you become a little kid all over again. And again, I was born here, but I'm first generation, and all these things came out. Best way I could describe it is it was like a piece of me that I didn't know I was missing. And I don't know if that makes sense, but until I saw you up there, you looked like me. You sounded like me. When I say me, I mean it in comillas, like any of us. You were relatable. You were one of us. You were one of us on so many levels. And again, self-serving, and God knows you win. You read a poem to the world, for God's sakes. But I can totally relate with what you said about your mom, because I was, and this falls under the category of, you know, embrace today, because you really look at this year, you don't know how things change from one day to the next. But in 2014, I was invited to a reception at the White House as part of LGBT leaders of the country. And for those of you, there's all different levels of receptions at the White House. The crowning jewel, if you will, is if the president's there, and even more so if the president and the first lady are there. That was the reception I was invited to. You know, I would have been happy just with the regular tour of the White House, but they were both there. This was big time. And it was also the week I was turning 50, and I had one guest, you know, a plus one. And of course I took my mother. It seemed like a really good idea at the time until we're on the plane, and I realized I'm taking probably one of the most Republican Cuban women on the planet to DC, to the White House, with another 200 LGBT leaders, most of which probably were Democrat. So we spent half of the flight there, like, Mom, please, 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 please. And she's like, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm like, I know you'll be fine, but you know, her moment was she insisted on having her photograph taken with a Cuba Libre in her hand, sitting like she lived there under the portrait of George W. Bush. Okay. And I gave her that moment. Of course I gave her that moment. It was like, fine, you know, but I can't express to you how many, and I'm only sharing this because if I felt that way, I can't even imagine how you felt and your, you know, moment up there. But so many emotions came. I'm in the White House. I'm a first generation Cuban American. Like this is crazy. I'm actually invited here by the president. I mean, it was a sense of pride that I don't know. God, I hope I have a lot of other moments in my life, but that was definitely up there for me. That was definitely up there for me. So I can relate to the, you know, your plus one as a mom. You're bringing her. So thank you for sharing that. Is there, can I put you on the spot and ask you to read something for us?
Sure. I want to read something for my mom, but since this is exactly the theme of the evening, I wanted to share this poem, which, where does this begin? So, you know, it's interesting. I never really wrote about my sexuality till like my fourth book, and I never quite understood why. I was living my life openly as a gay man, but I think maybe the question of cultural identity was with me even before the question of my sexuality. So maybe I had to work that out. But finally, in the fourth book, I started realizing that they were one story, or I should say that my story as a Cuban man, my identity as a Cuban man, and my identity as a Cuban gay man have an intersection. And that is, of course, the need to belong, the sense of home, community, the sense of trying to find some identity, no matter what that is. And I found a way to tell the story a lot through my grandmother. My grandmother was my primary caretaker and lived with us, of course. And she was a woman who was very homophobic and also very xenophobic. So anything that was too American for her was also gay. So like oatmeal was gay, or at least queer. Go somebody home, you know, like the Brady Bunch, you know, Fruit Loops, you name it. Any funny toy that she didn't like, and it was a complex relationship because she caused me a lot of. She tried to make me a man, and she knew I was going to be gay somehow. That's what the power of grandmothers. But she was also my best friend, and it took me years to, as I say, to understand that pain, years to hate her, years to forgive her, and finally love her. And so this poem is in a way funny, but it's in one way a tribute to her. And in some way it's a painful poem. So it's written in her voice. It's called Queer Theory, according to my abuela. And this is her speaking to me. Never drink your soda with a straw. Los hombres don't use straws. Milkshakes? Maybe. Stop buying your mother's Avon catalog in the men's underwear and those Sears flyers. I've seen you. Stay out of her Tupperware parties and perfume bottles. Don't let her kiss you. She kisses you much too much. Avoid hugging men, but if you must, pat them real hard on the back, even if it's your father. Must you keep that cat? Don't pet him so much. Mijo, why don't you like dogs? Never play house, even if you're the husband, and quit hanging out with that Henry kid. He's too pale, and I don't care what you call him. Those G.I. Joes of his are dolls. Don't draw rainbows or flowers or sunsets. I've seen you. Don't draw at all. No coloring books either. Put away your crayons, your Play-Doh, your Legos. Where are your Hot Wheels, your laser gun and handcuffs, those knives I gave you for Christmas? Never fly a kite or roller skate, but light all the firecrackers you want. Kill all the lizards you can. Cut up worms and feed them to that cat of yours. Don't sit Indian style with your legs crossed. You're no Indian. Stop click-clacking your sandals like some Tropicana chorus girl. And for God's sake, never, ever pee sitting down. I've seen you. Never take a bubble bath or wash your hair with shampoo. Shampoo is for women. So is conditioner, so is el mousse, so is hand lotion. Never file your nails or blow dry your hair. Go to the barber shop with your abuelo. You're not unisex, are you? Stay out of the kitchen. Los hombres don't cook, they eat. Eat anything you want, except deviled eggs, blow pops, croissants, bagels, maybe, and those petite fours. Don't watch Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie. Don't stare at the $6 million man. I've seen you. Never dance alone in your room. Donna Summer, Barry Manilow, The Captain and Tennille, Bette Midler, and all musicals forbidden. Posters of kittens, Star Wars, or the Eiffel Tower forbidden. Those fancy books on architecture and art, I threw them in the trash. Now you can't wear cologne or puka shells, and I better not catch you in clogs. If you grow a ponytail, I'll cut it off. Okay? What? No, you can't pierce your ear, left or right side. I don't care. You will not look like a goddamn queer. I've seen you, even though I know you are one.
I gotta say, I'm with her on the clogs. Okay, but other than that, that was it was harsh, but it was beautiful. And
That's our life, isn't it?
I think it's a generation. I think it's very much a generational thing because I have. It sounds horrible to say this, but I always describe my maternal grandmother as the nice one, and my paternal grandmother, not so nice. But I think we had the same grandmother on that side. It sounds like.
Yeah, I got to do recently a collaboration with a musician, and I got to dress up as my grandmother with the wig, the whole 9 yards. I even had to borrow one of my mother's batacasas.
I love it.
It was like, yeah, I think we all have someone like this in our life, whether it's in the context of sexuality or not, but someone who's, that best friend, but the frenemy, right? Like someone that teaches you stuff in some ways, but also you just want to punch in the face a lot of the times, but they're the ones that you always push against, but in that pushing you grow somehow, or at least you grow, at least emotionally, right?
That was amazing. Hang in there. I think Mill is going to give us a piece of work, and then we're going to Benjamin's also going to hopefully indulge us in a little more of his wonderful work.
Okay. Oh, am I muted?
No,
No? You guys can hear me, right? Okay, good. So my piece is quite short, and I wrote it after perusing through Google and I noticed the amount of deaths of African American transgender women. So the piece is about that. The piece is about abuse by the church, abuse by family members because of who you are. So this is what it is. There's no title to this, so I'm just gonna start off. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They have taken verses, sources, the blood of the innocents, the incense, it rises up to you. The blood you left behind, a tribute to this world. You, Father, you loved. Will I be next? Her onyx skin is pressed on the side of a wall. Her face is bruised, battered, but she is never broken. She refuses to be broken. I will not be broken. They did it to him, she says. Under her breath, they did it to him. Her hair is wet with sweat, while the proverbial sounds of hate attempt to penetrate every cell inside is battered, bruised, broken. They did it to him. They did it to him, she said. What can I expect? What can I expect? That's it. So that was that. It's a short, but it was a burst of emotion. I put it on paper, and that's literally how that works. So, yeah. I can't hear you, Herb. You're talking, but I can't hear you.
I said no roses are red, violets are blue in this group. I'm surrounded by greatness. I'm honored, truly honored. That was very moving, Mill. Thank you. Benjamin, would you like to give us a parting piece?
Yeah. It'll be related to what Richard read, and I just wanted to say, like, grandmothers really do have that like extra level of gaydar with their grandkids, because she knew that I was gay like before I was even sure, and I'm lucky her response to that was just to tell me like, "Hey, Ricky Martin's gay, and that's okay." That was like way before he came out, like, so she knew about him too somehow. All right, so this one's huitlacoche. Huitlacoche is this kind of fungus that grows on corn, and in Mexico, it's eaten. It's like a really delicious mushroom, basically. In the U.S., it's destroyed because a lot of the crops that are grown here are clones, and if you get one of these that gets it, it can pass really quickly. So, huitlacoche. Go ahead and call me what I am. Call me faggot, homo, joto, pinche puto. Unhusk me if you must. Call me acquired, call me dirty, call me corn smut. Though it looks like a prostate rolled in soot, huitlacoche at the farmer's market sells as Mexican truffle. Yet farmers in your heartland treat it like a sickness. And because disease can decimate a monoculture, they are afraid. That's why they bundle and they burn it. A literal faggot. I said it and I'll say it. Call me what I am. And if you can't pronounce my surname, I'm supposed to say, don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. Because even huitlacoche is a corruption of the Nahua huitlacochin, which is a corruption of huitlacoche. Tongues make mistakes, and mistakes make languages. Like I was saying, for a long time, I couldn't pronounce them either. The things I like. As with any delicacy, it's best to start slow. Sound it out. Huitlacoche. Analingus. Masturbation. When you master saying them out loud, it's time to rub any two syllables together. Cock, suck. Pussy, fuck. Ass, lick. Relax. They are only words. They are the only words you need to insult someone or to have sex with them, no matter what country you find yourself in. Words have their luggage like immigrants have their customs. Huitlacoche, mariposa, maricon. Now that I have put it in my mouth, I am proud to be a faggot. But it sounds so hateful when you say it. A coworker really said this to me. I said, because that's the way I always heard it. How do you speak such good English anyway? Smile, say nothing, don't sweat it. He aimed it as a compliment. Faggot, wetback, huitlacoche. All my life I've heard it. Learning English. It hurted is what I would say when I wanted to say it hurt. Not anymore. I know all about tense agreement. Just tell me where to conjugate and I will. Shut your mouth when I'm talking. Spores come out in droves like mosquitoes birthed for blood, or I'll give you what I got. So that's from Throne of the Throat. If you like it, please order it. It's been hard pushing a book in a pandemic. If you can't buy it, order it through your library. If you get your library to carry it, that also helps out. So, can't hear you, Herb.
One more time, the name of the book.
Thrown in the Throat.
Thrown in the Throat. Fantastic, fantastic. Mr. Jesus, I have two questions for you. First of all, referring back to the book that you collaborated on, tell us why queer brown voices are important. Why are they important in our community, in this world?
Well, it's important because our history is wiped out, because GLBT history is really basically white, and we're left out of the history books of our history. And it's very important that book is very important because we had 15 activists, GLBTQ Latino activists from across the country who gave their story, about how they fought racism, how they fought to exist, and how they fought, for our community to prevent HIV and see that. And so that's why it's very important, because without that book, there's no voice.
Wonderful.
For our community. Yeah.
I have a closing quick question, lightning round for all of you. And I'll start again with you, Jesus. What is your most treasured or valuable thing that you own, and why?
Piece of artwork. When you told me that, I had to get up and get it so I could show you. It's a piece of artwork done by a Mexican artist, Fabian Chaides. It was part of an exhibit called Zapata Después de Zapata at Bellas Artes, which is the most prestigious art museum in Mexico City. And because of his artwork, this piece, the family of Zapata wanted to kill him, wanted to destroy the painting. They actually went to Bellas Artes and wanted to tear the painting from the wall. I was in the museum when they came barging in, and I was with a friend of mine, and I said, "Girl, butch it up, because these people are dangerous." And what happened? That day, some gay activists, GLBT activists, went to Bellas Artes to protest the Zapatistas that had taken over the Bellas Artes, and the Zapatistas came out and beat them up. And so the artwork finally stayed because the president of Mexico, AMLO, got involved. And because of him, the piece of artwork stayed. And of course, because of the controversy that resulted of that, there was lines to see the artwork. And I want to show you that artwork now. It's Zapata feminine. If you notice, the heels are pistol, and the horse has a big erection. So, yeah. And I'm glad I own it because it's part of Mexico history now. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Benjamin, what is your most treasured possession and why?
That's really tough. I have a hard time thinking of an object. I'm just thinking I own my mom's house. So in terms of value, that's what it is, but also just what it symbolizes and how hard it was to work toward that, and growing up, moving from apartment to apartment to finally feel like there's something grounding is really important to me.
Thank you. Mill?
I guess you said one, and I'm here trying to think. I have three things.
More than one. It could be
so. One is this little stuffed animal, PJ. who's got a fake tattoo that I drew on him one afternoon out of Sharpie. So PJ would have to be one, and then definitely my dream journal, which that's where I write all my stuff down and then gets transferred onto the music side. So those would have to be both my two favorite things. It combined in one, maybe something like that. I don't know. PJ's valuable. He's an invaluable team. Okay, I can't set up my music without him. So it is what it is. So,
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Blanco. Muted. You're muted.
He's
not
muted.
There we go.
I have one, but I feel guilty that it's not about my mother. So this is what my father was wearing when he died, and so my mother gave me this, and my dad died when I was 23. So yeah, this is the first thing that came to mind. My dad, like many Latino fathers, was kind of a very quiet and a little bit of an emotionally handicapped when it came to, but also I was 23 and I never got to have an adult relationship with him. So this is my only sort of tangible object that I have left of him and what he means in my life, or what he could have meant in my life. And yeah, it's azabache, the whole 9 yards. The whole 9 yards.
That's amazing. Thank you. And I was going to cheat and not say anything myself. I was going to let all of you like spill your guts out as you already did. But I guess in fairness, I have to say I love collecting stuff. So I have, I don't consider myself a pack rat or a hoarder because it's collections, but I have a lot of different collections of things. But I'll go with my gut. I'll go with the first thing that I thought of. And it's a hand mixer. It's an electric hand mixer that used to belong to my grandmother, and my mother's the nice one, to my mother's mother. And even though it's just a mixer, it's a hand mixer. But it connects me. It connects me to her and her home and her cooking, which, by the way, like most good cooks, never read a recipe in her life. You could eat the same thing at her house 10 times and it would taste slightly different every time because she would just throw in whatever was in there. But damn, she could cook. It was always great. And that hand mixer connects me to her. It connects me to her. So with that, thank you. I have no words, truly, amongst giants of the word and of language. I am at a loss for words to thank all of you for participating in the 10th annual Celebrate Orgullo and in the spoken word and jazz evening. Thank you so much for everything that you do, because you are, and I know these are big shoes, but it's the truth. You are filling our culture, and you are representing and defining our community. And Richard, just before you came on, Jesus and I were talking about, especially in the LGBT community, that there's a whole generation that was just wiped out. And that's a reality. And it's up to all of us to not recreate that history, but certainly make sure that we are represented. We're represented as Latinos, as Hispanics, as, LGBTQ, on and on and on, whatever, hat you want to wear today, just represent and be proud and put it out there. And you're all certainly doing that and more with your work. So I wish you nothing but success. And thank you so much. Have a great evening.
And thank you.
Absolutely. And we've got, a couple more things of Celebrate Orgullo to come. We have virtual tours on Saturday. We're going to have a tour with Samantha Latois, and it's called Rediscovering My Raíces. And we're going to have basically a little tour around Miami of Colombian culture, of Cuban culture, through dance, through food, Nicaraguan culture as well. So tune in on Saturday from 2 to 4 on that. On Sunday, we are having a virtual tour with John Buckley on the making of a dance video. And it's really kind of very cool. I thought I knew everything that went into making of a dance video, but he kind of takes you behind the scenes, and he might even motivate you to stand up and learn a few steps there. And our closing ceremony this year, and what has been anything but a typical festival, and that's going to be next Wednesday, October 14th, with our drive-in movie. We're going to feature a film called Two Eyes, which was the closing film at the LA Outfest Festival this spring, this January. It's an amazing film that brings together two-spirited individuals, transgender, LGBT, indigenous, all of these cultures together in this beautiful, beautiful piece of art. So I encourage you, if you're local, fill up your car, come to the drive-in. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mill, I'm on to you. I know you're here. But with that, again, thank you very much. Everybody have a great night. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Bye all.